Right. So, well, pleasant good afternoon, I guess, to everybody. And we just chat in terms of where we are. So you all, I was saying, we have had some long sessions on chapter one. Some of them with past papers, some of them trending topics, right? Things like moral, legal, financial would have been like a trending topic. Um, what again? Things like the powers of inspectors. We had things like of course, probably the most common moral, legal, and financial, right? A very popular trending topic anyway. But at the end of it, which was 2 weeks ago, we looked at negligence and we had looked at the whole thing about civil law, right? How to win a case, Donahue versus Stevenson, if you remember the class, in fact. But not a lot of exam questions in the latter part of chapter one, right? So today we're in chapter two. And if you have your books, you can probably get it open. And chapter two is very short, right? However, we are possibly going to make two classes out of it, right? So in July, which is now, next week Saturday, you'll be finishing chapter two, right? So not all the chapters are long. And the other thing here, though, is that if you remember, the exam is only based on NG1, right? Or the first textbook then. And that book or the syllabus, if you want to refer to it, but it really is the syllabus first. And then the textbook only has 4 chapters, right? So this is a short course. Remember, it does last about 4 to 5 months. But it's not forever then, which is good because some of us would want to attain the qualification. So chapter one is behind us. Chapter two is going to be finished. We can actually finish this today, but I'll go a bit slow. So we can finish it next week, and we can possibly next week do a past paper or something if needs be. Chapter three would also be July. If you just want to take a mental note of this, you can write it down. This is July. Chapter two is in July. And chapter three is also July as well. But we wouldn't finish chapter three. Chapter three is not, it's like chapter one, it's kind of long. So that's July, August. But chapter four is actually very short. Chapter four is short, just like chapter two, right? Whatever month it is, it will just take about 2 sessions to finish off chapter four, right? So chapter four, just the same length as chapter two anyway, right? In terms of past papers and stuff, I mean, I remember we are not really going to predict, like, and I don't think anybody is a good predictor of NEBOSH anyway. But there are past papers in chapter two, of course, and there are questions in chapter two. I kind of struggled in here because the reason is that they're not that famous. That's the other thing. Chapter two questions are not that famous. They skip some sit-ins, they come some sit-ins, they come when they want to come. Then chapter two is like that kind of chapter anyway. It's not that every past paper has a question on chapter two, but then it's kind of regular, but it's not always there, right? So I mean, like, it's really not up to me to predict, it's up to me to teach. But that's what chapter two focus is all about anyway, right? So let's try to get into it today. Um, I would try not to do too much because if I do too much, I'll actually finish chapter two today. But if I do a little bit more than is required, what we can probably do next week, I'll let you know by when class is finished with today. If I do a bit more, then we can possibly um spend some time on past papers next week, right? But we have to see how far we get with it today. It isn't that hard, it isn't that long anyway, right? So let's have a go. I'm gonna get straight into it. Um, Let me see what's happening here. I'm gonna clean this off. All right, so it's just 2 learning outcomes. We have for chapter two, give an overall or overview of the elements of the health and safety management system and the benefits of having a formal certified system. And 2.2, discuss the main ingredients of the health and safety management system, that make it effective, general policy, organization, and arrangements, right? So let's go straight into this first one. So that's some review there. The review for chapter 1 would have been on the laws and stuff. So the role of the health and safety policy, right? And so let's look at this a bit, and I'll take a go at it. Right. So, oh, sorry about that. So the first thing I want to let you know is that, well, I'm not too sure if you have seen it though. So there is actually something called the health and safety policy, right? Those of us who work in, you may have seen it, and those of us who not working, you may have seen it as well. Because to me, anywhere you go, if it's like to the bank, to pay a bill, for Trinidad and Tobago, of course, if you go to the water company, WASA, or the electricity company, you normally find, like, have you ever seen anything in front of the company or at the back of the receptionist? And there's something like a HSE statement then, right? I've seen it in furniture stores, I've seen it in courts. Have you ever seen that? Like, you're going to Tech, if you're going to, that's the power company in Trinidad, to the right-hand side of Tech, of where the customers are, you're going to see something like our HSE policy. Have you ever seen that? Anybody?
Yes, sir, there's with banks as well.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, and well, like if you look at it, it's normally like there's like a tagline coming out of it. I don't know if you'll have noticed that. I mean, you may have seen it on some workers' coverall. Some companies have it, on their shirts and their coveralls and stuff. Like a statement then, right? There's like a statement that said, safety is my first priority. Have you ever seen that in anybody coverall? Safety is my first priority. Yeah. I just put here, right? We could write it better than me, because that is what the policy is all about. That's what this class is all about today. Right? Safety is my first priority. Anybody in a company, I see Dwayne there, but anybody in a company, and you sort of know, like, what is your company policy for safety? To give you a hint, is normally like a tagline. It's like a tagline, it's like a catchy phrase. Um, safety is my first priority is one of them, but different companies have different taglines, and that is what the class is about today. It's not about anything else, but about that thing that they call the HSE policy, right? So if you don't know any, which is kind of weird, because you must have seen people walking about with coveralls and stuff. This is one you could write down. This is one from Atlantic LNG. You could write this one down, right? So this is an idea of what the class is all about. So it says, we will do the job safely. We will do the job safely. Anyone knows the rest of that? We will do the job safely. Anyone knows it? This is exactly what BP does use as well. We will do the job safely. Anybody? You should write it down then, right? Or not at all. You see, as a safety officer, safety advisor, this is something that you may be asked to come up with, right? If you get into work for a company, from time to time they'll want it updated. In fact, from year to year, they want it updated, right? So we will do the job safely or not at all. What do you think about that one? And what about the one that you all are familiar with? Which one do you all know? Anybody know any others?
Mine is raising the shield. But ours
Raising
is
the
raise the
shield.
shield.
Okay, very good, very good. Right. So I mean, just like I said, you all are all safety persons in the making, right? So it's good to know one. But as I was saying, as you start your career in safety, from time to time, you may be asked to review the company policy, safety policy, and it may need some tweaking from years to years. Maybe they have a good one but you as the safety dad would have to contribute towards getting one of these policy statements anyway, right? Recently, 2 weeks ago, I was doing consultancy for a company and they didn't have a policy statement for HSE, but I was trying to incorporate their name into it, right? The name have express in it, like express delivery. So I was telling them something like maybe uh, quality and safety. I can't remember what I tell them, to be honest, but I'll use the word express in it, right? It's like express. Can't remember how I use, but I'd incorporated the word express and I told them they needed to pay me for that. But it was just kind of funny anyway, because we were trying to incorporate, a lot of people incorporate the name of their company into it then, like something like us at Shadrach here, like we have safety matters. Safety matters is our like our policy anyway, or the safety policy statement has safety matters in it. I'm not too sure what Massey one is, or I can't remember. I used to work for them, but I can't remember what theirs is, right? Anyway, that's what the course is all about. Anybody know of any others? Anybody know any policy statements again? Any HSE policy statements again?
Be safe, not sorry.
Be safe, not sorry. So could I write that one down? And it's always going to make a catchy phrase, right? Be safe, not sorry. I saw some recently, but I can't remember them. Where I wasn't, not even sure what Exxon was. Some people had some very long ones. So the long ones are not that, you can't remember them all the time. But be safe, not sorry is a nice one, right? I think I saw another one at a time, safety 24/7, or you know, um, you know, we all go home or nobody goes home. Something like that I remember seeing at a time, right? Kind of like from the military perspective, but that's a nice one. So we are all safe or nobody is safe, something like that, right? Anyway, that's what the class is about. And I wanted to start with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't understand what the notes are saying. So we had to start there. We had to start from what is a HSE policy statement or what does it look like. The next time you see somebody in a coverall or in the bank or something, take a look and see what they have. And you could probably take a mental note of it because you can never tell. You can never tell what you may have to do then in your career, right? But in terms of the notes, let's have a go at it. So from here, see if it makes some sense. So the note is saying the role of the health and safety policy, right? So what's the purpose in that, and what's the purpose in having that policy on the notice board, having it in your cover? But like what's the purpose, right? So what they say, it provides focus for an organization in terms of health and safety. Right? Think about it. It provides focus for the organization. So, like, if you say we will do the job safely or not at all, well, what does that mean? I mean, does that mean that you are waiting on OSHA to tell you what to do? If you say we will do the job safe or not at all, or be safe, not sorry. I think I put safety, right? But supposed to be safe, right? So my mistake there. But if you say be safe, not sorry, then then what you're doing then is what you see, and then you are actually self-regulating yourself. You all seen that? Yeah, you're actually self-regulating yourself. Self-regulation means you're not waiting on anyone to tell you what to do, right? The policy statements are normally signed by the CEO of your company. I'm not too sure if you all know that. If you all see them anyway, you'll not just see a statement then, but it's actually signed, right? It's actually signed and it's gonna be signed and dated and laminated and like placed in front of the company. So, it does demonstrate that the manager signed it. It does demonstrate that they have given their okay to what you have there anyway, right? Last one, it provides a means of continual improvement, right? And that actually has to do something. When we turn this slide, you'll see it away. Well, you'll see it in a chart and you have it in your book too. But the safety management system is said to be like a cycle. So if you say we will do the job safe or not at all, then it does seem to be that if every day you are doing that, if every day you are doing that, then it does lean to then continual improvement, right? So the policy does provide this focus once you have a good policy anyway, right? It provides focus on the company, self-regulation, demonstrate management commitment, right? Continual improvement anyway, right? What do you all think? Tell me what you think if you get that one. This is a very simple chapter. There's nothing too difficult in it anyway. There's nothing too difficult in the chapter. But there are some passivers, and I'll slow down on the passivers a bit, right? I'm taking this writing off. Right. So the next one. So I could probably break some of this down for you all. Let me break some of it down for you all, right? So if you turn one of your pages in your book, you're going to see a big picture like this on chapter 2. You're going to see something called the plan, do, check, act, cycle. See if you see that and let me know. And I'll tell you what we're looking at there. You can tell me what page you'll see now, on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, what page is it on in your book? I just want to give you something to do. Page 4, okay. Page 4 of chapter 2, right? Okay, good. So when you come up with this, right? So this is known as a safety management system. And you have a couple of them out there, right? Now, I'm not going to go off track too much, right? I will stick on the topic of the policy. So with a safety management system, they normally you have to plan, do, check, and act. If you look at your book, though, what do you see when they say plan? What is the word? When they say plan, what do they plan? Check your book and you'll see it. I'll write it here for you. When they say plan, what are you planning?
They're planning the policy and well, I guess the planning that will go into creating it.
Right, very good. So that's the topic we're on, right? So what you plan is the policy, right? What you plan is the policy. So that's what we just did. We just created one. A policy is like, we'll do the job safely or not at all, right? So when they say plan, a very key part then of the management system, when they say plan, you plan your policy, you know? So that's like what we just did. You just plan the policy, right? So I try not to tread into 2.2 though, right? If I go into policy now, we tread into 2.2. So like when they say plan the policy, there are some things you have to plan in the policy, but I'm not going into 2.2 as yet, right? The reason is that there's a question here. So I'm trying to kind of focus on this. But when you plan your policy, if you want, I can just do one of it. I'm not going to go too much into it. So when they say plan the policy, right? What you want to plan like your goals then for health and safety. So if I can give you one and you could give me one, and we will just leave it as that till next week. So you want to plan like your goals for health and safety. So when you say plan your policy, you'll come up with a tagline, like how we just said, we do the job safe or not at all, or safety is my first priority, right? So that would be like your goal, right? However, you can actually flesh that goal out some more. So I'll give you one, right? For now, because it's actually 2.2, right? So like for now, a good thing to have in your policy, this is what I was telling you, when you go to the companies, you would see these things at the back of the receptionist or the front of the company, right? So like you'll see some commitments that as part of their goals. So they want to reduce accidents to 0. And that's what you're going to find on that extract I was talking about that was signed, right? So they're going to reduce accidents to 0. So could you give me one? And I'm not trying to do too much of it because this is actually 2.2. But I try to give you the idea that when they say plan your policy and you write off this one sheet on up, right? This itself doesn't have a passiva, but there's something bigger here with a passiva. So could you say, what do you think could be something they want as a goal? This word is goal, GOAL. What is something they want as a goal in the HSE policy? I have to reduce accident to 0. So what do you think is the next thing? You find it in all of them, like in ports and T and Tech and WASA. Everybody kind of have the same commitment anyway. But what do you think is a good goal that the company should plan for, other than reduce accident to 0?
To identify hazards within the organization.
Very good. To identify hazards within the organization. That does sound like Sparkle Lynch, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. So yeah, to identify hazards, and again, I don't want to do all because this is 2.2, right? And if we go there, then we've kind of forsaken the passive that is looking at us, right? But I don't want to leave the word now, like I don't want to leave it like when you read plan, you have to understand that we are really planning. It's really a plan. You're really coming up with what is your goals for health and safety, right? Can I give you one more? We'll kind of close it there till next week. And we'll focus on what we are looking at now. But I didn't want to leave it as just a vague word then. Literally, plan means plan. And each of them actually mean to implement what you said that you're going to do here, right? So another one, like a good thing to maybe plan is training. A company will have like a training record. So like they will say, we want to have 20 persons trained in first aid, or they want to have 10 persons trained in defensive driving. The point is, it is real, it's a real plan you're coming up with, right? And if you see the ones through the companies, perhaps at, at your company, Exxon, Gisby, TNTech, Trinidad, Massey, whatever have you, you'll find they have some really good stuff. Like they're going to create a safe place of work, ensure everybody's safe, have welfare facilities. It's a lot of stuff, but it's a one-sheeter. And it's kind of signed at the end of the day, right? So the other thing, watch me here, but after you say what you plan, you're going to have to do it. You'll have to start to implement it, right? So if we want to pick one from this, we'll just pick one from here. Let's pick, I'll pick the one that's the easiest one. I won't pick the hard one, right? I'll pick training, right? So if you say you wanted to get 20 persons trained in, let's say, defensive driving, right? So that's your plan, but you're going to have to do it, right? So doing it would have to be like you have to call up some providers, right? Get a quotation, get 3 quotations, etc. Right? So the plan do check act cycle is part of a management system, but it allows you to fulfill the goals that you set and whatever your goals are, right? So you get 3 quotations, you get the training done. Watch me here. After you get the training done, you have to check up, evaluate the training then, check to see if it was done. Right? So you can evaluate the training. A lot of companies, they have like a training evaluation form at the end of the training for that. Right? So you can check up on your training. You can check up maybe if you were given certificates. Right? If you were given certificates, you can check up on that. Right? So evaluate your training. And then if there's anything for improvement, perhaps somebody said, well, the training could have been better, right? Or there could have been a greater emphasis on practical, something like that. This act here, just take this on with me. If you look at your book too, this is actually short for action. This act is actually short for action to improve. So I don't know if you want to write that down, right? As action to improve. So if there's any room for improvement, that's what you do under action for improvement. Right? You could write this down. You could write any proper word, action for improvement. So the plan do check act cycle sort of allows you then to fulfill your goals once you come up with your plan, which in this case is your policy, and your policy consists of all of these statements here. Well, we only have 3, but next week we'll have to get more statements of intent. The only thing with this though is that in a way this is an open book exam. So it isn't hard to come up with the policies or the statements. If they ask you to, you can simply Google it, right? It isn't that hard anyway, right? So I was telling you all, there's a past paper here. So I don't know if you want me to just mention what the past paper is when you finish writing. Now, hopefully you understand the management system allows you to fulfill your plan. What is your plan? Your plan for safety is your policy. What's your policy? Your policy is whatever you want to achieve. But when you finish, and I want to just mention the past paper to you. Now, as I said, we're not too much in the Nostradamus effect of prophesying what could come for exam. But as a tutor, then all I could do, I could tell you that, look, there was a past paper on this, right? I could also tell you that it was common or it wasn't common or whatever have you, right? Okay, so let me tell you, if you're finished, everybody finished? Everybody finished, write down those little things on it. This is not the end of it, but it's a focus on 2.1, and the focus of 2.1 is not really the statements of intent, but the focus of 2.1 is management systems, right? So we're gonna try to keep the focus here until next week anyway. All right, listen to this past paper, right? Listen to this past paper. So it had one past paper on this chart, only one. It never came back. But remember, you can't really predict NEBOSH. I would say learn everything, right? I mean, you could predict some topics like moral, legal, financial is very popular. You know, certain parts of chapter 3 is very popular. But listen to how the past paper came, right? So how the past paper came, they give you the chart, PDCA. And what they did, they introduced words that you had to fit the words into PDCA. It was a 10-mark question, so you had 10 words to fit into it. Right? So I don't know if you want us to talk about that a bit. I don't think it's that hard. Plus, remember, you could actually Google some of these. You could actually Google a word then, right? Like if they had said a word, you could Google it and see, well, you could ask Google, where does X, Y, and Z fall in the management system? Now, it's actually common sense too, but like I said, because it's an open book exam with no one supervising you, you could actually have some confirmations then as to what is what, right? So let me start off easy and see if you can figure them out, right? I'm not going to do the whole question. I'll just probably give about 3 words anyway to kind of give some sort of reference to how the question came for the exam, right? So see if you can match this one, right? This one should be an easy one. But I mean, so where do you think the aims, like the aims of the company will fall, the aim and the objective? So they give it like that. They give it the words and you had to match it up to PDCA. So where does aim and objectives fall? In other words, does it fall within plan? Does it fall within do? Does it fall within check? Does it fall within act? Not a very difficult question. Where do you think aim and objectives fall?
Plan.
Okay, very good. Anybody have a second thought to that? So I'll just put P here. P is correct. Plan is correct. Let's get another one. Anybody had any questions or you didn't agree? All right. So I try not to sell out the word too, right? Okay, so I'll put here conducting a risk assessment. Like if you had to conduct a risk assessment, where does that fall? Conducting a risk. You could take this down and remember this is like the past paper. You could never tell. As I said, we were looking at a past paper, right? So conducting a risk assessment, where do you think that falls? Most students got all of these things correct anyway, right? Conducted an RA, where do you think that falls?
Check.
You want to unmute your mics and say those of us because the checker. Okay, I have Sparkle have the answer to us. When anybody else? Where do you think conducted an RA falls? Under P, under D, under C, or under A? Plan, do, check, or act? Make a guess. Today's not the exam. Class
Check,
it only
sir.
came. Which one, Derek?
Check.
Check, okay. Anybody else conducting a risk assessment? What say Aidan or Nickel? What do you all say?
It should be under do.
Do, okay, all right. You'll agree. So we had two answers. Somebody said do, somebody said check.
I said do.
Okay, do. What about Eddie, Neka, Vishala, Magdalene, Singh?
So I say do.
Okay, so this one was do. I'll put a D here. I'll just do one more because you see how easy it was. But they had 10. Like I'm not fully convinced to give you that for class assignments because it only came once. You know, like to me, if we do it here, we do it enough already. Like it never repeated now. And if it does, great. You could just Google it. You could just open your book. It's an open book test. What you figure out with your own intuition, you could just Google it, right? Let me put this one here. And I try not to use back the words that I put on the slide, you see. Okay, so getting an inspection done. So getting an inspection, what do you think that falls? Getting an inspection done. And I guess if yeah, I mean you can see the trend what they're going with, right? So you can see the trend. So I did plan, I did do. So this one obviously would be check, right? But in nature of the word itself, now like inspections and stuff, then you know that's checking. If it wasn't a hard question, and maybe that's why NEBOSH never came back to it. But like I said, it's up to me to tell you what came and what could come. But you know, I've seen so there's another question here, but not on this slide. We have to turn this slide. Still on management systems though. And that other one is popular, right? This one came once, right? If it does, I'm happy if it comes back for you all. But like one is not a trend, is it? If somebody tell you one is not a trend. But the thing is it came. But you know, one is not a trend. Just give me a minute. Yeah, right. Okay, so I'm leaving this. I wish you the best with it for exam. If it does come, I don't think one is really a trend, but you know, it is what it is anyway. So I'm moving on. All right, so let's recap a bit. So what we did today, we did the policy. And the policy is part of a management system called the PDCA cycle or the plan, do, check, act cycle. Right? The policy consists of your aims, your goals and stuff, and the management system will help you to achieve that policy. So let's move on a bit further for now. So as I mentioned, there are other management systems out there, and the most popular one around the world are the ISO standards, right? So this is just history here, right? I mean, this standard was inspired by OSAS 18001. You don't have to know no history, right? Today, the most common management system in the world is ISO 45001 for health and safety. So it looks like this. Let me just try to bring this up in a bigger view. It looks like this, right? This is this is my chart for ISO. And the reason why I did this is if you look at the one in your book, could you look at the one in your textbook? You'll see it's very small. They printed it very, very small. If you could find management systems and find ISO 45001, I didn't like that one, right? So what you can do, you could probably print this slide, like I will blow it up here like a full page, and you should probably keep it, and I'll tell you why just now. Right? So if you look at ISO, you still notice it follows. See if you notice it's still following the plan idea. Like if you look under planning, you'd see policy here. Look at here, right? So you're still planning the policy. You're still doing things there, right? It's still doing, it's still checking, it's still acting. However, ISO is more detailed than the PDCA cycle. The long and short of the story is that the PDCA cycle is more from England, but the ISO standard is more global anyway, right? So one is England and one is global anyway. All right. So let me tell you what all of this is here and the importance of it in a bit. Time has getting. Yeah. So the importance of this have to do with a question. And the most common question is this question here. The heading here is a passive question. And very famous too. So if you want to write that down, right? The benefits of a formal certified health and safety management system. That is the most common question coming out of chapter 2. Not even next week work is famous as this one. Next week class, still, when we get more into the policy next week, this is still your most popular question. So this is what I could give you this week to do, right? All right, so what I was telling you, there's a link between this and this. There's a link between this chart and this, right? So what the link is that, I don't know if you can see it, the link is that you can take all of these elements of ISO then and turn it into a benefit. You can tweak these into a benefit. Like, for example, if they say, what's the benefit of a company gaining ISO certification? But you can say, what I'm going to do right there, you can say there's going to be a focus on leadership and worker participation. Thank God it's an open book exam. You could just pull the words on them. And you could use the words as the benefit. So what's the benefit of ISO certification? There's a focus on the health and safety policy, like developing the policies that we just spoke about. So the importance of the chart, when I say print it and keep it, is really for the benefit question, if it was to come, right? You can say there's a focus on contractor management. You can take any one of the words there. There's a focus on internal audits. There's a focus on continual improvement. There's a focus on participation and consultation with the workers. Think you're getting it a bit? So there's a purpose in the chart. The chart is the benefits. Tell me what you think, because once you finish this, we finish and I just watching the time. I should have actually gotten a possible for you. But if I move on, we'll finish the work today. Right? What I could do, I could finish it and we could actually look at a passive, you know. Because I don't want to finish. We still have a timeline. You see, even next week we'll be finishing kind of early. So I'll still do a passive next week. I did say NEBOSH is not that long. Chapter 2 is not that long. Chapter 3 is kind of long, but not everything in chapter 3 is for exam. It's just like chapter 1 then. You know, not everything was really exam anyway. So let me see the phone. Just give me a minute, huh? Right. Yeah. So So what I did do on this slide, I actually wrote out the benefits, but I was just thinking, remember, NEBOSH has a kind of plagiarism software thing that they can't really plagiarize. Like even the lecturer notes, right? So that's why I was telling you to go back to the source now. The source is this. So you didn't have to really take my benefits. You could write your own benefits if they ask you, what are the benefits of a company gaining ISO certification, right? But you could use some from my slides, just say it back in your own words, I guess, right? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, so you have some benefits is increased access to contracts and tender requirements. A company that is ISO certified has an increased reputation as a safer company. It allows a better organization of health and safety from policy formulation to management review. And that's what you see here, watch it, policy and you have management review. This is like a sideline anyway, right? But policy formulation to management review. It's a positive driver for safety culture with fewer accidents and better hazard awareness. All of these are benefits, right? Reduce work-related injury, ill health, and death. Develop and implement an occupational health and safety policy and occupation health and safety objectives. I got that one from here. I just wrote that one out of this point here. So you all seen what I did? I wrote the benefits and them from right here, right? Reduces occupational health and safety risk. I suppose if risk is reduced, you're gonna get reduced insurance premiums as well. And this slide takes you into 2.2. This is 2.2 right here. All of this is 2.2, right? So tell me what you think. Can you see what I did? And if you could write the benefits from the diagram itself, I could take any word, like for example, incident, corrective action. You can say a benefit is that a company that is ISO certified will have less incidents, less non-conformity, and there's going to be a focus on corrective actions. If you do it like that, they won't see it as plagiarism then, because if you're all right from my notes, then that is going to be, if you write it just the same way, which is what you're not supposed to do, right? Then if you write it back in your own words, fine. But if you write it down the same way you have here, then that is seen to be plagiarism anyway, right? Give me a minute. I want to try. I didn't think we would have finished this fast, but because I have nothing in the view screen. When I mean nothing about exam papers then, right? So the way that works with Zoom, you have to preload your view screen first. So let me see if I can find a past paper. This is actually not my regular computer either too, so that may be even more tricky. If it does prove to be tricky, what I'll do, I would probably continue with the teaching, but that means we may just finish policy today, which is not kind of what I had in mind anyway, right? We do have a certain number of sessions to go, and let me just try to find if I could find something here relevant to you all for the exam anyway, right? Well, what do you all think so far? I mean, I could the NEBOSH course. I know somebody told me they were doing past papers and thing already. The thing about open book exams, they are much easier than you think. However, once you catch the technique, remember the technique is that you must tie in the past paper, right? Once you tie in the past paper, then you're good to go anyway, right? I'm seeing a couple of past papers here, but it's to see if they ever did test, what I'm talking about, right? So let's go into that. Whichever one we see, I'm just going to open and have a look and we'll see what came. I've seen one here, but it doesn't have anything. And that's the thing I'm telling you. These chapter 2 questions are kind of not always, to say that you can guarantee something like that, then is not always the way it is anyway, right? Past papers is a little bit more Honestly, thought this one would have had one in it though. April 2022 sound to me as if it had a participle on that in it, but it didn't. Let me just try another one and see. Right, so let me share it with you all. I mean, these don't have any questions on them, right? And this is what I say. That's why you saw me shaking my head just now. It doesn't mean then that every participle test. And as I say, when you start chapter 2, there's not too much of questions, right? So can you just verify if you all see in the participle here? This should be you should be seeing, I guess, April 2021. Are you all seeing that? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Let me just try to bring it up a bit. This one doesn't have one in it, but I wanted to tell you that because sometimes when you see, you hear Sir say that this is common or it's not common, but it's really true. Some things are not common, right? Chapter 2 questions in general are not common, but if they come on the benefits, right? So this is the first question here, test the employee responsibility, 10 marks. Second question, the influence of health and safety culture. Third question, the health and safety management rules and responsibilities. That's a very simple question. All of these are very simple enough. We could stop and do one, right? Task 4, accident investigation and recommendations. Task 5, determining human factors that influence safety behavior. That's very easy. That's too easy. I could explain that to you now and you can get all the answers, right? Task 6 is something on a risk assessment. Very, very simple calculation. 7 is on financial, like the financial reasons to manage health and safety. So you see, no question in chapter 2. So that's when I tell you when I start, you saw me thinking and I was thinking, and I told you there's one and then it never came back. But there are questions on the benefits of a management system, but it doesn't come all the time. You understand when I tell you that now? I tell you sometimes it miss and then it come and it miss and it come, but this is proof of it. Let me open another participle. I'm going to open one more. This one is April 2022. Now, I actually thought this had one in it because I remember some of the students, unless if I remember the wrong year, but April 2022, no, could have been April 2023 then. So I am remembering incorrectly, yeah. But still, what this proves is that the question is not popular. So there's one on first aid, management failures, reported the accident, all very simple. Rules and response, all of these are very simple enough. We'll stop and we'll do one and tell you, right, before we finish today. Induction training, moral. Determining the organization and factors positively influencing behavior at work, but no question on management system. So you see what I told you, it's not a joke, right? It's not a joke that the art of predicting NEBOSH is not a very good art at all because it's hard to predict what comes to exam in the long run anyway, right? Let me just try one more. As in August 2023. I can't this is the thing, sometimes it's so difficult to even find one of these questions, but you all see like moral, legal, financial is always there. Management commitment and stuff is like always there on the paper, right? Let's try this one and this last one. And what we'll do, we'll still stop and do a question because we have the time today, right? We'll stop and we kind of decipher out a question. And that'll be our session for today anyway, right? I did say, like I said, it's not my fault. These questions are few and far apart, right? Something on selecting contractors, something on negative leadership, influence of peers, culture indicators, permit to work, how managers failed in, or failures contributed to the accident, the benefits of inspection, and something about administrative control, right? But no questions. So you all seen for yourselves. So you all understand what I meant by hopefully you see for yourself, and it's not a joke I tell anyone. I said, what is it, right? But let's stop and do one. Let's stop and do any one. I'll show you how these things are easy to get done. And what makes them easy is that you have a case study, right? We can probably do something like number 6, right? This is a very famous question anyway. These are what we call general questions. A general question is that the answers are kind of all in the case study, right? Let's stop and so you don't have to be afraid of a NEBOSH exam. They're very doable, right? Not every question is based on total content. Sometimes they're just based on the case study, right? But management failures is very popular. Every participant have a question on management failure. But the good news is all the answers in the case study. Watch this. Let's have a read of it. It said here, based on the scenario only, not based on your textbook, not based on Google. The answers in the case study, the answers in the passage, right? What management failures could have contributed to the accident? How much marks is this question? How many marks is this question? Come on, wake up, people. How much marks is this
12.
question? So how much answers you have to get?
12.
Yeah, they get
12.
12 answers. Okay, next question. Where are you getting the 12 answers from?
From the case
Scenario.
study.
Study. Yeah. So folks, if you remember orientation there, I did tell you NEBOSH, some of the NEBOSH questions is like a comprehension. Some of them you have to go in your book and stuff, right? But I've chose this one for more than one reason. The main reason is that management failure is a common question. Doesn't matter the year. Every participant have a question on management failure, right? Every participant question on every question paper have something on moral, legal, and financial too. So I think you saw that. Every paper we open, you see, I think you saw moral, legal, financial, right? So let's keep this in mind, and I'm gonna try to get at least 6 of the answers. We're gonna go to the case study now and have a read of it. And all you do is remember the format for an answer. To get the mark, you have to do 2 things. You have to get the answer, and you have to get the supporting line. For those of us who forgot all about this in the last 2 weeks anyway, right? So to get the 1 mark available, you have to say how the managers fail. That's the answer, and you have to get the supporting lines. And then you get 1 mark for that. We're going to try to get about 6 if it's anything. As I read, I will stop when I find one, and then I'll ask you. I guess based on my tone, you'll know when I find the next one, right? So just to give you a clue, like the answer would be something like, I would say like, in my opinion, a management failure is a lack of communication. So that's the answer. Communication would be the answer. And then you have to say, you have to go in the case study and find the supporting line. So when we read the case study, we would see that perhaps the manager was shouting at the worker. So we can say this is a scene where the manager was shouting at the worker, and then you quote that from the passage itself. If you can do that, that's perfect. That's 1 mark. And you just do that, well, 11 other times, and you get the 12 marks that is available anyway. But we wouldn't go to 12. We'll just go to 6 and see if we can get 6 answers, right? So you all understand there's an answer and a line. Please don't ever forget it. If you put the answer alone, you get no marks. If you put the line alone, you get no marks. To get the 1 mark available, you must put the answer and the line, right? At the end of your exam, you have an interview to do with me, right? NEBOSH requires an interview, a one-on-one interview. A lot of the students, they say good things, right? And one of the things they always say is that, like, you were well prepared for exam, right? I mean, the only way you mess this up is if you mess it up for exam day, right? But, you're well prepared as to how. The technique is more important here. I don't even understand. You understand the technique is more important than the textbook. You have your book, but the technique is still more important than the textbook, right? Let's go to the case study and see. Keep in mind, we're looking for, oh, by the way, what I would have done, I know you're not doing it, but I'll show you what I would have done. I would have made an answer plan. So I'd have had like 12 different answers, because if you repeat the same answer twice, you don't get a mark. So if I talk about communication, I wouldn't talk about communication again. But let's go to the case study and see what we can see. And this is not too long. This is August last year. Just under a year. Well, over a year anyway. Right? Let's have a read of this, right? And keep in mind, keep in focus. We're not looking for everything. We're looking for management failures, right? All right. So Wigmos Wildlife Park, WWP, is a tourist attraction celebrating its 50-year anniversary this summer. When it first opened, WWP consisted of a large mansion and gardens with a small number of animal enclosures. Since then, WWP complex has expanded to 5 times larger. WWP, just give me a minute, admit a student, right? Has a workforce of 200 permanent and 200 temporary workers. That's a large park. And has 800,000 visitors per year. 50 years, right? Keep that in mind. 50 years. We have to keep thinking about what managers, but we haven't reached that good part as yet. 45 years ago, a fire destroyed a monkey enclosure attached to the mansion. The ruined enclosure was demolished and replaced with a large cafe. Well, that's a long time, right? To celebrate the anniversary, WWP began 3 months ago to convert parts of the cafe back into a monkey enclosure. During the construction work, 70% of the cafe area had been cordoned off. The rest of the cafe remains open. Keep in mind what you're looking for, management failure. That could be one day, you know. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Or you want to read on? My thing in exams, right? My thing in exams is once you find an answer, take it one time. Because remember, it's 12 you had to get. Could you see that as an answer? And what would be the answer? Like, how would you have phrased it? Because remember, every response must have an answer and the line. But what is wrong there then? What is the management failure there? Every response must have an answer and it must have the supporting lines. What do you think could have been wrong with that one there then?
Well, that's a possible hazard since construction work is going on. Some of the customers might be affected maybe by noise or potential like dust, things like that in the area.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that could be a hazard.
Anybody else seen it? I just watch how much people it is. I mean, even if you say your own workers, right? Your own workers is 400 in a. Your own workers, 200 permanent and 200 temporary, minus them visitors and them, right? A lot of visitors. It's not 80,000 a day. Sorry, 800,000 a day, but there's a lot of visitors. And how much of the cafe has been cordoned off? How much percent? 10%? How much percent?
70%.
That's a big amount, right? And the rest of the cafe remain open. So I agree. So I would have said, like, my answer, and like I said, my thing with the exam, remember, when I say my thing with the exam, I'm putting myself in your shoes, right? In exam day, you're fighting for time, you're fighting for answers. You can answer this one. Right? You're fighting for time, you're fighting for answers. So, like, when I get one, I would take it. I don't ever ignore an answer because it's 12 I had to get, right? If I get more than 12, I could come back and change it because you're all typing. You're typing. You could delete if you want. But once I get an answer, man, I taking it, right? So I would say, like, in my opinion, a management failure could have been a lack of proper segregation or exposing workers and, as was said, visitors to hazards in and around the construction and cafe area. Full stop. That's my answer. And then I said, this is seen where it was mentioned during the construction work, not after the construction work, during the construction work, 70% of the cafe has been cordoned off. The rest of the cafe remains open, thereby exposing workers and visitors to hazards. What do you think about that answer? That's a perfect answer. But the point I wanted to show you is don't ignore. This is kind of early in the case study, but I don't ever ignore an answer because it's an exam and to ignore an answer is like finding a piece of gold and throwing back this piece of gold and hoping you find a next piece. But if you find a piece, keep the piece you find. Right? Keep the part that you find. Let's go again. The grounds manager hired a construction company called CP for the work after a friend recommended them. What do you think about that one? I want to read again. The GM, so the ground manager, was impressed by CP's online portfolio. During a telephone call, CP confidentially assured the grounds manager that they would complete the work. This was despite never, this was something Trinidad, this was despite having never built an animal enclosure before. So folks, you must know something wrong here, right? The GM was happy not to spend time searching for other potential contractors and hired CP immediately based on an online portfolio. Right? The GM arranged a CP to conduct a risk assessment of the site before construction began. CP told the GM to leave everything to us, including the difficult health and safety stuff, which the GM readily agreed to. What would be your answer for this? Phrase that and an answer for me. What is being wrong and pull a line from it. So that is 2. Anybody? I did it.
I think it could be like 2 separate answers. One could
I
be
think we have
that
more than 2 there too, yeah.
yeah, the grounds manager did not properly assess the construction company before choosing one that was right for the task. And that could be supported by the line where the grounds manager was happy to not spend time searching for another potential contractor and hired CP immediately.
Yeah.
And our next one would be that they didn't properly manage the construction company itself because they left the task of managing the health and safety aspect of it to the construction company alone. And they didn't really seem to take an interest in the risk assessment either. And that will be supported by the other line that CP told the GM to leave everything else to us, including the difficult health and safety stuff, which GM agreed to readily.
Yeah. Well, Aiden, I have nothing more to say. That's perfect. I cannot add anything to what Aiden said there. I cannot minus anything from what he said. That is a perfect answer. Right? Normally, I normally come in and kind of clarify. I have nothing to clarify. So that's a perfect answer. But so you're seeing it, like 3 answers right there. And we didn't reach far. I mean, look, we still kind of seeing the top of the passage, right? We didn't reach far, but I don't know if you remember some things I told you all, and I'll say it again, like passing this exam is more like of a technique. It's like a game of cricket. If you want to win, right? Guyana or Trinidad is a game, it's really technique, right? It's not really memory. It's not too much a skill either. It's actually more a play on technique, right? And if you can catch the technique, Aiden did it perfectly there, then you're good to go. I'm trying to delete, I'm trying to get rid of some of those stuff there, right? But that's perfect there, the way it was said. And I have nothing more to add to that. Let's see if we can get another one. So you all see when I tell you all NEBOSH not hard? Folks, you all understanding? If everybody you talk to the said NEBOSH hard, it's not hard. How come so much of people passing if it hard then, right? And as I was saying before, we have a syllabus to follow, but it's my job to tell you, as I always say, like, what's common, what's not common, right? As we were looking at it at the start of today's class, I said, policy isn't that common. And I opened 3 past papers and none of them had policy in it. But there are things that you can do, like common sense questions like these then, right? Let's read on again. And again, that was perfect. If anybody see, we're going for 3 more runs, as they would say. And wherever we reach, we're going to stop there for today. Chapter 2, again, please keep in mind, NEBOSH is also not long. The certificate is not long anymore. It used to be long before, It's not that long now. Folks, even the degree is not long. The degree is only 18 months. In less than 2 years, I come out with a level 6 BSc degree in health and safety from NEBOSH. The exam is also open book, right? The class I had before, you all had about, We have about 30 students in class, but about 23 came out today for the live, right? But that's the good news today. NEBOSH is not, it's still the gold standard, but it's easier to get it today, right? I'm moving on. I would slow down and I'll take 3 more answers for today, right? So, and I'll take it from somebody else. So the talks. So each morning, the CP contractor workers gather to discuss the plans for the day and possible improvements. Recently, a few WWP team leaders overheard these discussions and started similar talks with their teams. Within a month of these talks, accident rates reduce. That's a good thing, right? The WWP teams involved in these talks now work less overtime and look happier. These teams enthusiastically recommended new system and discussed it with other teams. Other team leaders who heard this became interested in trying this new system in their own teams. Now, most of the WWP team leaders start their day with a team talk, which is good. But that's actually for another question. If you go back to the question, they would ask like, what is the thing about safety culture then? Like, what is the good things, right? So every participant, remember, is not one question you have, but we need to focus on what we're doing, which is the management failure. So that passage there is meant for another question, right? So you joined WWP this year as a team leader with responsibility for one of the animal enclosures. You have health and safety qualification as part of your university degree. This impressed WWP in your original interview because safety is vital to this type of work. What does that sound like to you? Safety is vital to this type of work. What does that sound like to you today?
A
We did
policy
something.
statement.
That
Policy
sounds like a
statement.
policy. Yeah. It's something like that. That sounds like their policy statement, you know. Safety is vital. Anyway, it's something like that. The interviewers boasted about being accident-free for 10 years. They talk about how the chief executive meets all new workers at the thorough induction training. Well, that's a good thing, and that's the culture question I'm telling you, right? The interviewers proudly describe a range of workers' health and well-being benefits, as well as specific health and safety training, which is all good. However, we are not on the good question. We are on another question looking at management failures, right? So you are also trying to incorporate the talks into your team's daily schedule, but so far, your team have been unwilling to participate. Most of your team have worked together for 30 years. But that's a long time for somebody to be working in a park. But I guess it's maybe a good park, right? 30 years, that's a long time, right? Most of your team have worked together for 30 years and are called the gang by other workers. They are always quiet around you, so you want to use these talks to involve the team more. This way, you can understand your team better and improve work activities. Again, we're not looking for that as yet. We are looking for management failures. You see how I tell you when you see an answer, take it one time because you don't know where you're going to find another one, right? So you eventually gather your team and explain the reason for these talks, then ask if anyone has any suggestions or questions. After a long silence, the youngest and least confident team member starts speaking. They are immediately interrupted by the longest serving team member, LSTM. They announce, "You should have brought snacks for us. Otherwise, this talk will just be a waste of time." The youngest team member who was interrupted looks away while everyone else awkwardly nods in agreement. You explain why it is not a waste of time, but the team looks towards the LSTM, the longest serving team member, who stubbornly remains silent. You sigh and tells the team to discuss ideas while you buy snack food from the WWP cafe. What do you think about that? Would you have gone to buy snacks for them? I wouldn't. I'm trying to get a water behind you. If you're in a meeting, right, and the people tell you that they wanted snacks, would you have gone to buy snacks for them? I wouldn't have gone to buy no snacks for them. Right? But
No.
anyway, I don't think I wonder if there's a fault, but I don't think so. I wouldn't. They would have to stay right in. Right? I would leave my meeting to go and buy snacks for you. Something had to be wrong. Anyway, I wonder if there's an answer. I wonder. Probably not. Because we're looking at management failure, right? I don't think there's a management failure anyway. Okay, let's see. So on the 5-minute walk to the cafe, my thing is why, that could be one, like, why did they leave the meeting, right? Because you are the one hosting the meeting. Anyway, on the 5-minute walk to the cafe, you pass several other animal enclosures and the construction workers' facilities. Before entering the cafe, you take out a pocket of disposable earplugs from your pocket and put them into your ears. You started bringing the earplugs to work with you when the construction began, and always keep a pack on you while walking across the cafe. Sorry, and always keep a pack on. That sounds like one, right? Like what does this suggest then? Like what does that suggest? Why does this worker, which is actually you, why does he or she have to walk with their own earplugs? It means the place is what?
It's
Hazardous
very
Everybody-
noisy.
Yeah, it's noisy. So I could use that
Noisy.
now. You see, again, my thing is if I find an answer, I not, if you're catching fish and you catch a fish, and as you first one you catch, don't throw it back as yet, right? Put it in your boat for a bit, right? So I would put that in. I would use that. So let me give you this one, and I'll leave one for you. So I would say, like, in my opinion, a management failure could have been, and that could be, I could find different ways to phrase that, right? But I would say a management failure could have been a lack of resources given to workers such as PPE. And I could say this could be supported by the line that you have started to bring the earplugs to work with you when the construction began, and always keep a pack on you, right? It didn't seem as if it was given from the company. Another way you could have phrased this, you can say a management failure could have been, uh, a lack of noise, like a lack of reducing that noise then. Get it too. Yeah, a lack of reducing the noise. So something like that, right? And then you can use that here where it was said, you take out a pack of disposable earplugs from your pocket to put them into your ear, because that is symbolic of noise then. Think you're getting it? When you get an answer, don't ignore the answer, because yeah, you can never tell what is what anyway, right? It may have more, but like I said, if it have more and you don't like one of your answers, just delete it and write it over. Just type it over. But don't ever ignore an answer, because, again, it's 12. Right now we're on 4. So we haven't reached half as yet. And look how far we reach in the passage, right? Let's go again. While walking across the cafe, your foot suddenly slips on the stone floor and you fall. But you grab a nearby table and avoid hitting the ground. Looking down at the floor, you discover dust and dirt trailing from the cafe toilets towards the emergency exit door. This door is being partially held open with a wedge of wood. Let me just admit somebody, right? Following the trail, you open the emergency exit door wider to discover it leads to the mansion's main entrance hall, where visitors normally enter WWP. This hall gives access to the gift shop, information center, the ticket booth, and the temporary construction site entrance, right? So tell me what you think could be a management failure here. Anybody? Like what is one there? I mean, the whole thing with the fall and everything. So this could have started before. Eh? So this is a simple one. What's the management for? The managers fail to maintain proper what?
I would say
Okay.
something like the field to do housekeeping.
Very
You would-
good. Yeah. So that's it. There's safety is not rocket science, folks. It's simple as that, right? So you can say, in my opinion, the managers fail to maintain proper housekeeping. What about the thing about the emergency exit door? That's another one. The emergency exit door is being held open with a wedge of wood. That's another answer, right? Another answer is, in my opinion, the managers fail to have proper emergency planning, in that the emergency exit door is being held open with a wooden wedge. And then you can just quote it. So you see how simple the exam is, folks, right? what you need though, right? So that's 5 we on it. We have 5 answers there. Unless if you see another one, right? What you need, I keep telling you, well, I was telling a student yesterday, a guy came by to register. I told him we have 2 classes today. Well, we have 4 classes today, right? But I have one and another tutor have one going on right now. I was telling a student yesterday, on the registration form, have a place for you to put if you have a printer. And he was asking, well, why do we need a printer? Well, you need a printer to print this paper. Right? I find, unless if you find it different, I find it's easier to read from a hard copy paper now and to go through and find the lines. But if you could do it on screen, fine. I find having a printer and printing the paper for the day of the exam, you could actually take a pencil and you trace under the lines as you go now, so you find the lines on them. That's just me. Right? So for you too, if you know you all are you're all young in the business yet, you're not even halfway yet. Right? But I'm trying to let you know that NEBOSH is doable. It's not rocket science. You need a little bit of knowledge, you need some common sense, right? And you need some technique, and you can pass your NEBOSH exams, right? Respect to chapter 2, I am not NEBOSH. I am just here to tell you what's common and what's not common. And chapter 2 questions not very common. They have 1 or 2, right? But that's it. It's 1 or 2. Not every paper have them, right? Let's see if we can get one more again. The construction site. So I mean, one more for today, but this is a 12-mark question, so you had to come up with 12, right? So you leave the cafe through the emergency exit. Yeah, go ahead. Nikhil?
So about the
Nikhil?
emergency exit, that could be an export because
Yeah.
the emergency exit leading back to the gift shop and information center.
And that's where everybody will go, isn't it? Yeah. So that is an answer here. So you consider the management failure is like they failed to have proper emergency planning and emergency exits. And you could actually code that same line there anyway, right? All right, so you see how easy NEBOSH is? Don't let nobody fool earlier, right? Who didn't come to this school because, you know, our students do well. And like I said, a lot of them, the greatest thing every student will say on the interview is that they probably can't remember everything I taught, but they remember the technique. If you remember the technique, well, then you pass. It's an open book exam. You don't remember nothing anyway. You remember nothing in the first place. But if you remember some things, it's fine, but you don't remember everything, right? All right, so the construction side, once I get one more step for today, it's 22 minutes past 2 anyway. So you leave the cafe through the emergency exit and stand at the temporary construction site entrance gate. You shout to gain the attention of anyone inside, but do not receive a response. So then we mentioned the noise thing already, but the thing is, once you mention an answer, you can't come back to it. If you mention noise, don't mention noise again because they won't give you an extra mark, right? So we can move on. Carefully opening the gate, you see that building materials and equipment are piled on the floor. Cables trail across the ground to a noisy oil diesel generator. So you can come back and tweak up your answers because you're getting some better answers here. Additionally, loud music is playing from a radio. You see a stationary forklift truck with the wooden planks across its raised forks. Now, this is wrong right here, right? Once you're operating a forklift, once the forklift is not in operation, the forks have to be lowered. So you can take a note of that. So that's one right there, right? You see how NEBOSH is like a comprehension. So does this make sense now when I spoke to you all on orientation day? You see how NEBOSH is a comprehension today? It doesn't define the answers, right? So this one will be, you can say, in my opinion, a management failure is that work equipment was not isolated or turned off properly. This was mentioned where it was said the forklift trucks with a wooden plank across its raised forks was in a stationary position, which means the forklift is not running, right? A CP worker is standing on top of the plank, welding a metal framework. So that's even more wrong. That's improper procedure, right? The worker is shifting their weight from side to side in time with the music. So they're dancing then, they're dancing on the plank. Their long, loose sleeves slip over their shoes as they move. You looked around for the site supervisor, but there's no one else in sight. You immediately leave the site and go to find the GM to tell them everything you have seen. The GM assures you that they will contact the site supervisor straight away. The GM is impressed with your knowledge and reliability and asks if you take on a health and safety road. You say you will think about it. Before you leave, the GM reminds you to fill out the near-miss book. Fill in the near-miss book for your slip. On the way back to the cafe, you inform the relevant WWP workers that the cafe floor needs cleaning. The near-miss book in the cafe is easily located. As you record the incident, you are surprised to see a large increase in entries over the last 6 months. Before leaving the cafe, you find 2 slippery surface signs, A boards, and put them on either side of the dirt trail. Okay, so you can read out the rest, or when you ever get some time, or whenever we could send these things to you anyway. It's not that we have to send this one. The idea today was to kind of convey that NEBOSH is not that difficult. The idea was also to convey to you that chapter 2 questions isn't that famous. And you saw it for yourself, right? So when you hear me think and you see me stop and wonder, and what am I doing? I'm trying to remember if there are any questions. There's not too much of chapter 2 questions. I tell you, the most common question in chapter 2, let me see if I can go back and get it for you now, is this. This here, the benefits, that is the most common question in chapter 2. And it's not common in the first place. It came. It comes every year, but it's like what month of the year? Right? It's very hard to predict NEBOSH question, but what I'm trying to show you today is that you don't need a whole set of predicting skills then. You just need to do the paper. Papers are not that hard. The exam is not that hard. Everybody here should pass. But if you play the fool and you don't do what you're supposed to do, like you don't do it the way, you see how we said it? In my opinion, a management failure is a lack of maintenance. In my opinion, a management failure is a lack of proper housekeeping. You have to give it the line and give it the second line too and say, this is seen where it was said they are trailing cables or whatever have you. Once you do that, you pass. Once you don't do that, you don't pass, right? But it's very doable then in terms of passing a NEBOSH exam today, right? Stopping the recording, right? Do we have any questions?